Hello and welcome to episode 183 of the How to Survive podcast. My name is Chris, and joining me, as ever, the voice inside my head, it's Joe Sherville.
I need your permission to take over co-hosting duties.
Permission granted. This week's film is a cyber body horror. It's seriously gory. I likes it a lot.
Yeah.
And luckily for you, the listener, you can watch it at home. Like Google Home. Like
Google Home, yeah. Well, I've been caught on a bad day for puns.
Yeah. Very good.
Yeah.
This week's film is called Upgrade.
Yeah.
It's directed by Lee Whannell. It came out last year. And it's much like Robocop, a story of a man who, after serious injury, undergoes a transhuman, did you say?
Transhumanism, yeah.
Yeah, transhumanist procedure to modify himself with an artificial intelligence.
Yeah, it's basically brief synopsis for this movie. He gets his spine severed and it gets replaced by a computer chip, which has an artificial intelligence which takes over his body.
Yeah, which is all fine. If you haven't seen Upgrade, then you've had about 6 months in which you could have seen it. And it is now available, I think, on all streaming services or wherever you normally find your films that have just recently come out.
Amazon streaming.
Yeah, rented it.
Yeah.
So you know where to find these things. The How to Survive podcast is full of spoilers. So if you haven't seen Upgrade and you would like to, then now is your last chance to duck out before we spoil it rotten with our analysis and recaps and chat and insight before we move on to how we would survive. But with all that said, in the meantime, hey, STEM, play trailer.
As a quadriplegic, it must be frustrating for you, someone who likes to get things done with their hands.
Here's the thing. 4 guys murdered my wife. If I could find those men, I'd do it.
What if I told you I could offer you something that would enable you to walk again? I call it STEM, a computer chip that has the potential to change everything. It's a new, better brain.
I am STEM, the system operating your body for you.
Can anybody else hear you?
No, only you. May I point something out? In the drone surveillance footage, Sir Brantner, Marine Corps, address 414 Citrus, Newcraft. You'll need a plan.
I got this.
This doesn't seem like a well-thought-out plan. I need your permission to operate independently.
Permission granted!
Thank you.
Stay down, man. Stam, he's got a knife!
I see that. We have a knife, too. You now have full control again, Gray.
Mechanic Gray Trace fixes up a car for his wealthy client Aaron. Definitely not Elon.
Right. You got it already. The thing is, right?
Yeah.
Gray Trace does not sound like an everyman, does he?
No. Grey, do you think that's grey matter? Do you think that's where they're going?
A trace of grey matter? It's rubbish.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
And we're only at his name.
His wealthy client, Eron, and drives it to Eron's house to deliver it alongside his wife, Asha.
In a Bezler.
Eron is a famous tech innovator, and while Gray is there, Eron shows him his latest invention, STEM, an AI chip that can serve as an auxiliary brain. On the way home, Asha's self-driving car malfunctions and crashes. 4 men arrive, shoot Asha in the chest and shoot Gray in the neck, severing his spinal cord and leaving him paralysed. He watches helplessly as Asha dies. Though police drones observe the crime, the individuals have technology which prevents their identification. Gray is confined to a wheelchair and, depressed, attempts suicide. Eron visits him in hospital and offers to implant him with STEM, promising it will allow him to regain control of his body. Gray eventually accepts the offer and is amazed by the quick progress he makes in recovering his movement. Back home, Gray begins to hear an internal voice from STEM, who begins to suggest ways to help find out who killed Asher. Reviewing video footage of the crime, STEM is able to identify one of the assailants from a military tattoo as a man named Cirque, and Gray sneaks into his home, discovering he too has been upgraded as the result of a military experiment. He finds clues connecting Cirque to a local bar, but Cirque returns and assaults Gray. Gray gives STEM permission to control his body and becomes a ruthless killing machine, quickly killing Cirque with a knife, which is one of the best scenes in the film, I think.
Probably the best scene.
Thanks in no small part to the fact that even though it's obviously a choreographed fight scene, Logan Marshall Green plays Gray as basically a spectator who is horrified by the actions of his own body. Yeah, which is great. Like, he's smashing glasses into the guy's head and he's going, "Oh my God,
Please don't get up, please."
Yeah, it's very good. Despite Gray still being apparently confined to a wheelchair, Detective Cortez begins to grow suspicious of him when she learns of his proximity to Cirque's murder. Eron, panicked by the implications of the police discovering that he has implanted a human with STEM, forbids Gray from pursuing the other assailants, but he does anyway, finding and torturing one into revealing the name of the ringleader, Fisk. Eron is tracking Gray and, knowing that he is continuing to hunt the assailants, tries to shut down STEM remotely. STEM takes Gray to a hacker who is able to sever Eron's connection to STEM and remove STEM's input guards. Fisk and a companion find Gray at the hacker's apartment, but Gray escapes, killing Fisk's companion in the process. Detective Cortez is suspicious once again, having found Gray's abandoned wheelchair near the second murder. Gray wants to call off the search for Fisk, but STEM points out that unless they kill him first, Fisk will eventually track them down. Gray drives to Fisk's location, chased by Detective Cortez, but STEM redirects a self-driving car to help lose her. Cortez returns to Gray's house, and his mother reveals the existence of STEM to her.
The end.
Gray confronts Fisk, who reveals it was Eron. I've actually written Elon here.
Wow.
Gray confronts Fisk, who reveals that it was in fact Eron himself who hired Fisk and his companions to paralyze Gray and murder his wife, engineering the conditions for Gray to have STEM implanted. Gray kills Fisk after a protracted fight and storms Eron's house, killing his security. Eron reveals that he is a prisoner in his own home under the control of none other than STEM, who has been engineering the situation with the goal of becoming human.
Who saw that coming?
Cortez arrives and tries to stop him, but STEM takes control of Gray and kills Eron, therefore meaning that he can never make another STEM.
Right. Because he's the only person who's capable.
Yes, and also the group that STEM has been killing are all other upgraded humans.
Right, exactly.
So now he is the only upgraded human and no other version of him can be made.
Brilliant.
Attempting to wrestle back control, Gray shoots himself in the neck and wakes up in hospital with Asher. She explains that he's been unconscious since the car crash and he takes comfort in the events of the film being a dream. However, it is revealed that STEM has gained full control and placed Gray in a permanent dream state, gaining access to his mind through the removal of the input guards and his state of psychological strain. STEM, having assumed total control of Gray's body, shoots Detective Cortez and leaves Eron's home. And that is how Upgrade ends.
Yeah, it was all a dream. Followed by
It is all a dream.
Cruel ruse.
Yeah. What did you think of Upgrade?
Pretty rubbish. It's Black Mirror for hoopleheads, I think.
What is a hooplehead for anyone who doesn't know?
Hooplehead is a phrase from the TV series Deadwood.
Okay.
Used to describe the like drunken rabble that just walk around Deadwood
Right.
and like sleep in mud and stuff. What I mean is it's, Black Mirror is high quality sci-fi, I think.
Okay.
For most part. There's some episodes that don't quite hit it, but
Mm-hmm.
it's generally like, let's take an idea from what technology could eventually become and just make that into a drama.
Yeah, follow it to its logical conclusion.
Right, exactly. This doesn't feel like a logical conclusion, I don't think. It feels like a movie that doesn't know what it's supposed to be. It feels like it's got elements of a thriller, of a sci-fi, a film noir, action, horror, but I don't think it goes into any of those with enough confidence to be any good. Like if it was a noir thriller about a man who's got a robot in him, that would be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But it isn't quite that. It's just like Lee Whannell has seen a film like that and gone, oh, quite like that. The script is abject. The acting is robotic and not how it was intended to be. And the plot is predictable, I think, in the extreme. But having said that, I did somewhat enjoy it.
Yeah, I think that's the key, in that it's very schlocky. Like you say, it is essentially a schlocky Black Mirror episode.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of, I sort of know what you mean about it being a blend of genres, but I think it's pretty. I mean, it's basically an action movie, isn't it? At its heart,
Right.
But it's an action movie directed by a horror director.
Yeah. It reminded me in parts, I think. The closest film I think you can compare it to is probably something like iRobot.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a man who's technologically skeptic, who's brought into the world of robots and computers and AI, and gradually comes to rely on trust them until it goes wrong at the end.
Yeah. Only that it doesn't quite go. Well, I guess it sort of goes wrong at the end of iRobot, doesn't it? But yeah, I know where you're coming from. I sort of, like you, in spite of myself, had quite a good time with it.
Yeah.
Particularly the scenes, as we said, where he's just Gray is like horrified by what's going on in front of him. I thought there was some interesting directorial touches, some like Gareth Evans-esque camera flipping.
Yeah,
during the fight scenes.
Like whenever STEM was in control, they kind of went into this like steady cam thing.
Yeah,
which was really cool.
Like
it keeps level with him, so if it changes level at the same time.
Gray is. So it's like Gray is locked at the center of the frame, and everything's happening around him, which is quite a nice touch. It's like a good way to communicate how
it's probably one of the best things of the film.
Yeah, I think that said though, that some of the fight scenes really do suffer for having erratic editing and direction, and you have to wonder what a film like this would be like if you did have someone like Gareth Evans directing.
You're right, exactly.
It's sort of an Internet of Things horror, isn't it? Do you know the phrase Internet of Things?
I do. I know it well. I've produced a lot of research on it myself.
Okay, well, do you want to explain to the listener?
Internet of Things is simply the idea that the equipment becomes connected to the internet and becomes part of its own network. So often you'll think that the Internet of Things might mean a toaster that's connected to Wi-Fi or connected to your phone.
Yeah.
That's not quite true, because that means that you still have to input something in your phone to use the toaster. So a true Internet of Things would be the toaster just knows, based on something else in the network, that it's time for toast. So it's completely.
It'd be like if your fridge knows you're out of milk and orders milk.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's just all automated, no human involvement. That is the Internet of Things.
Right.
In its purest form.
Yeah. And so I guess that relates quite strongly to this film, because he eventually ends up the human aspect of his relationship with STEM and his body is eventually circumnavigated.
Yeah.
I think early on it sets out it's sort of, I mean, it's pretty, one thing that is very rote about the script is the whole idea that Gray is like, the one skeptic, as you say. Right.
The only person that didn't have a technological upgrade in his body or something.
Well, no, it's like he's just cynical about.
No, they said that's what STEM says at the end, that you're the only person who I came across who didn't have any body enhancements.
Right. Okay.
Because I think people have like phone screens implanted in their arms or whatever it might be.
Right. Okay.
And he had nothing.
but we see scenes of him saying, why don't we not use the self-driving car? Why don't we make a pizza instead of printing a pizza?
Is it a printed pizza?
Yeah.
God.
I mean, we'd all love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a very generic character.
Yeah, like I say, he's Detective Spooner in iRobot, but without the backstory.
Yeah. But that said, things like and this is where it feels like a Black Mirror episode, the self-driving car being hacked and rerouted and crashed.
These are all genuine fears that people have about Internet of Things.
Yeah, and self-driving cars have been hacked. They've shown, it's been shown that they are able to be hacked. In fact, it's not even self-driving cars. Cars that are connected to the internet have been shown that through their internet connection, hackers can hack into them and disable the brakes or, things of that nature. So it doesn't feel far-fetched to imagine that someone... Yeah, there was a car, I forget what model it was, but there was a whole big storm because there was a car that had, internet access, so it could receive firmware updates and things like that.
Right, okay.
And through that, you could get like a back door into the systems of the car.
Right.
And then because I think, for example, it's like a, not like an electric handbrake. So like a button, it was able to be controlled through the software of the unit.
So it was good guy white hat hackers that did it.
I think it was people
trying
discovered
to find
it
problems
and but I think it was pretty crazy. So it's
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard that. I've heard someone got killed by a self-driving car.
That is that's
because they were wearing black, riding a black bike on a black night, on a black road.
Yeah,
it couldn't
victim
be
blaming.
Yeah, you shouldn't have been there.
Yeah,
Google have never done anything wrong. We know that.
Yeah.
Okay,
well,
Google.
That's the thing with the whole self-driving car thing. Is like how can you teach an AI to weigh up the value of someone's life? For example, how does it balance the life of the individual that's inside the taxi against
That's one of the things. I remember I've been into transhumanism and this sort of thing for years. I read a book some years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, called An Optimist's Guide to the Future, which is all about the different technologies that were being developed at the time.
Right.
And so the biggest thing that was a hold up was the philosophy behind it. Because how do you value two different lives separately? And that's the question at the heart of iRobot, right?
Yeah.
That is because that's why he hates robots, because of an accident involving a robot making that decision.
Yeah. It's the trolley. What's it called? The trolley problem?
Trolley dilemma. Yeah.
Trolley dilemma, right.
Do you route it over one person or three people?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if a human can't decide that, how do you expect an AI to?
Yeah, because it needs someone to make that decision in the first place.
Yeah.
I guess you'd do it on probability of success or something.
But then it's calculated through biases.
Yeah.
Because everything is, right? So, people don't realize that technology is racialized. For example, have you seen those videos of black people who go to use those like hand soap dispensers that have, proximity sensors?
But they're lasers.
Yeah, but they're not seen because it doesn't recognize their skin color.
Right.
For example.
Yeah, right.
Right. So there's, and you get the same thing with like facial recognition and all that sort of thing.
Of course.
Because people who are making these technologies are predominantly white.
Yeah.
And don't realize that there's an inherent bias in the things they're doing.
Old digital cameras when you're in a club and they
wouldn't recognize
someone with dark skin because it's a dark room.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So it's a, sinister portent of the future. And we see two, cars being hacked and rerouted.
In this film.
Yeah, just in this film. I mean, how long do you think it is before people have smart implants and things like that?
It's happening already. You've got the very, what's the word? You've got the fringe people who do it, fringe members of the transhumanism group. So there's the guy who has installed an antenna in his skull. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've come across him He was on This American Life and stuff like that.
Right.
And it means that he can pick up static from the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Which he
I
can
like
then
his
hear.
band.
Go on.
Radiohead.
Yeah, fine. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's all right, isn't it?
That is a fine one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, computer.
Yeah. Yeah.
He can do that. There's the guy who installed a Oyster card in his hand,
Yeah.
and then because it was a misuse of the technology, the Oyster card deactivated the card.
Exactly, which
is
is
amazing.
Fantastic.
There's people who are doing things like it.
Mm.
And obviously you've got prosthetics. If you get a prosthetic leg now, a high end one,
Hmm.
it won't just be a wooden leg. It'll be a, for all intents and purposes, it might act in the same way as a leg might already.
Hmm.
So if it's bionic,
Yeah.
if it can run off of your brain signals,
Mhm.
we're not far off that.
Yeah. Well, you see, there are people who have prosthetic hands who can manipulate them, like individual fingers and things.
Yeah, right, of course.
And that's through, I think, nerve signals.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the difference? Well, it's not much of a leap to go from that to, say, cutting off your leg deliberately to install a more high-powered one, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You could. Yeah. It's not. It's. I mean, this is a cyberpunk film, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that is the whole idea of cyberpunk. Whatever you would call it, art.
Mm-hmm.
Is the melding of man and machine. It really doesn't feel like it's far off, does it? I mean, we've all, I'm sure, had the slow creep of microphones, etc., into our homes.
It's not long till they get into your body. I think
it does. Honestly, it doesn't feel like a particularly far-fetched extension of that.
I
does it?
personally, I said I'd draw the line at Google Home, and look at me now.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't have that, and now I have it. So maybe if everyone around you has it, then you're just like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Well, yeah, but then you've got an iPhone, so that's probably just as likely to be always listening to you as.
But it's not that.
Google
It's
Home.
more like I just don't want anything in my body.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. I same with me, but I'm saying like it's become such a typical part of life that it wasn't, 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Yeah. And you think it, logically, it's not a huge leap to keep going smaller and smaller with the technology, and to the point where it can be implanted quite subtly, I imagine.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't so subtle in last week's film, Robocop.
No, right. Where it was more like he was put in the robot.
Yeah, his face
yeah.
was stapled onto a robot.
Right.
We like to pair the films, obviously, because they have some sort of similarities. I think this has a great deal of similarity to Robocop.
I think so.
Last week you posed the question, was Robocop the most upsetting body horror movie that we'd covered? Do you think this is a more upsetting body horror than Robocop?
Not really. I don't think so. Because the most upsetting parts of Upgrade, I think, were the scenes where he's like vomiting because he can't swallow custard that his mother's feeding him because his back's been broken, and she's like having to give him the Heimlich to stop him drowning on his dinner. That's just like bleak. And obviously a real thing that you could experience now if you were to suffer a spinal injury.
Yeah.
And that's really truly upsetting. A movie like Me Before You deals with similar things. The reality of a spinal injury.
Yeah.
But other than that, with Upgrade, I was more upset by like the complete nonsense technology stuff, right?
Right.
Like STEM being shut down remotely, but then like taking 20 minutes to shut down very gradually, just enough time to get there in time. And I'm like, oh, man, I'm grinding my teeth trying to get through it. Or the people like in the VR, and they're like, this drove me mad, right? Because the Gray goes to a hacker to have the input guards removed on STEM. Yeah, to stop it being shut down.
And the place where the hacker lives is full of people who are living their life in VR.
Yeah, it's meant to be like a heroin den, right?
Right.
I think. It's like
that's the analog for it.
Yeah, it's in a squat.
Yeah.
And
there are people hooked up to drips and hooked up to VR headsets and just, living their lives virtually.
What annoyed me about it was there was this one particular VR person who was like 2 feet away from the wall, just waving their arms around. No arm sensors or anything. Are you going to hurt your hand?
Yeah. Yeah,
it's just
that's true.
all fun and games till you smash your hand against the wall. I've used an HTC Vive, as have you, and the one thing you're always conscious of, you're shouting to everyone in the room, am I going to knock anything over?
Yeah. Am I going to trip over the cable?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you are right.
I guess you could say like, oh no, the technology is so advanced that they
It
don't
will never
need
do.
that
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
So that was the upsetting thing for me. You've got the real thing which you could get from any movie about spinal injury, and you've got the upsetting things from the just annoying representation technology. But Robocop, by comparison, I think showed a fate worse than death, which is where you're forced to walk around as a husk of yourself. The memories of your past that don't really make sense. Which is the same sort of thing at the centre of Ghost in the Shell, which is a similar movie about transhumanism gone wrong. Whereas Upgrade is more or less a happy ending for Grey, right? Because if it's a choice between living as a quadriplegic and living in a world where you don't know this, but you get your wife back and you live a happy life, and the body that is useless to you, this is listed the way the movie puts it, you don't have to deal with that anymore. You get to live the life you want.
Isn't that another sort of famous philosophical what do you call it? Conundrum of whether or not it would be whether or not people would prefer to live their life in a the perfect life in a machine, or carry on living with struggle.
Right. So there's the Black Mirror episode where you can, I think she's the
Is it
option.
San Junipero?
No, it's not. It's the one where the guy from Get Out's in it. It's the reward thing for watching
15
adverts.
million merits.
Yes. The girl in that is given the option to become more or less a stripper, but she'll be on a drug that makes her happy all the time.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't know any different. And it's Socrates, isn't it? He said, would I rather be a content pig or an unhappy Socrates?
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, so I find it interesting that you've come down on this side of all this, really, because I'm basically the opposite.
You think it's a bleak ending?
Yeah, I think it is bleak. I think it's
bleak, but it's like he was in a situation where I think if you'd said to him,
but then I guess it depends on what you define as your self, because you've just criticized people who are living their life in VR, which is essentially what he's doing. Meanwhile, his body is being used, his self is being used for all sorts of heinous acts. And who's to say that STEM won't, there's no recourse for STEM if it decides to torture Grey for all eternity either. It makes no difference to it. So,
which begs the question, why bother anyway?
Why not just turn him off? Yeah. I guess maybe, I don't know. There's probably some sci-fi reasoning going on. But in relation to Robocop, I think this is a much more upsetting body horror.
Really?
Than Robocop, yeah. Because we see his plight before he's modified, like you said, we see him paralyzed, etc. But his character progression essentially works in the inverse of that of Alex Murphy from Robocop. And spoilers for Robocop if you haven't seen it. Although I'm sure most people, even if you haven't, either know the story or can work it out. But basically, Alex Murphy, basically Grey begins in full control when he first has the procedure and slowly loses his agency as the film progresses. Whereas Robocop is the opposite of that. Robocop is about regaining your agency.
Right. Okay.
Right. Robocop is about an outsider modifying your body against your will and then fighting to regain control and regain your identity. And Upgrade is about modifying your body at the cost of eventually losing control of it completely.
Upgrade is an Icarus story, isn't it? It's like you wanted what you shouldn't want, and look what happened.
Well, it's a story of the futility of revenge, isn't it? Like the cost of revenge, because it's the thing. Revenge is clearly the thing that he wants the most because it's the only thing that's apparently giving his life purpose, and he achieves it, but it comes at a terrible price.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. I feel like Robocop ends on a upbeat note, right? Doesn't it?
Yeah,
'Cause
wink to the camera.
yeah, exactly. My name's Murphy or
Yeah.
whatever. Whereas this one is like he's been stripped of everything that made him,
Him
and he's basically a shell,
living in the Matrix.
right? At the under the control of a malevolent artificial intelligence,
Like the Matrix.
who presumably
It's the Matrix. This
is the Matrix origin story.
Yeah. Could be. Maybe the Matrix is STEM.
Maybe. What's the big machine called in the Matrix? You know
The Matrix.
no, there's like a giant.
Oh. The one that the architect talks about.
Yeah, and Neo goes and sees it eventually, right?
Zion.
Fine. Whatever it is, write in howtoIShow@gmail.com. So you mentioned transhumanism earlier.
Yeah, we talked about that last week with Robocop as well.
Yeah, how does that compare between the two films?
Robocop showed humans being upgraded and controlled by other humans. Upgrade shows humans being upgraded and controlled by computers. The first one, Robocop, is for basically military technology.
Yeah.
To kill other people and to keep
it
them
is,
in
but
control.
it's still like a capitalist corporation, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but it's a way of controlling the masses. Whereas I think Upgrade doesn't give a fuck. It like STEM doesn't have designs on gaining money. It has designs on like broadening its own limitations or like breaking down its own limitations. Now it has a body. What's next? More bodies probably.
Yeah, copying itself and yeah,
It's a computer virus.
that's true. I don't know. I think the whole faceless corporation thing.
Yeah.
There's definitely like an analog between the two films.
Yeah, I mean, Robocop is Wade and Yutani, I think, and Upgrade is Skynet. That's how I.
Yeah, I
See
guess so. I mean, they both have these. The corporations in both of the films see humans as a disposable asset. Although I guess you could argue that it's not actually the corporation in Upgrade.
I
It's
think
the
that's the thing.
artificial intelligence.
It's the singularity, isn't it? It's
Right.
Skynet reaching.
A higher
awareness.
level of intelligence
Right.
than humanity.
But instead of launching nuclear bombs, it just tries to take over people.
Yeah. But then with the other upgraded humans, there seems to be a similar disregard for the humanity of the individuals who have been upgraded, because you get the villains essentially are also upgraded humans, but they've got things like guns in their hands, infrared eyesight.
So they're more like Robocop because they were wounded in battle and upgraded to be better weapons, essentially.
Yeah, with it, one of them can breathe nano. I mean, that is one of the low points of the film, I think. Basically, one of the big bad, Fisk, can breathe out nanobots, I guess they are they?
Yep, and they fly over the room and eat someone's brain.
Yeah. But then it shows the military's disregard for them as
Anything other than
a
cannon
weapon.
fodder, yeah,
right. Because what possible chance do they have at living a normal life when they've got a shotgun built into their arm, which is an illegal body modification? They don't have any chance. So obviously they're going to become criminals and live underground, and therefore the military clearly doesn't care about their humanity.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I think I see that as a strong comparison, but I think there is a certain distinction because for all intents and purposes, Robocop was quite a new idea in that it's the internal perspective of someone who is being turned into a robot, has been turned into a robot, and the struggles they face. Whereas Upgrade offers nothing new because you've got Terminator or Transcendence or Lucy, which all have the same general idea, right? Even Iron Man has a similar idea at the heart of it, which is like owing your life to technology. I haven't seen Iron Man in some years. I don't fuck with Marvel movies really, but I don't think that's an AI. It's just more like
in one of the Avengers movies,
right?
he builds an AI to basically replace him, so he doesn't have to be Iron Man anymore.
Is that
but that he becomes Ultron.
Is that Paul Bettany?
Eventually, yes.
So Ultron becomes what's his name?
No, so there's Ultron and there's Vision.
Vision, yeah.
And Ultron's like the first version of Vision,
Right.
which goes wrong, and then I think Vision is built because they have the like some I can't remember. There's some part of
Is it the stone in his
process.
head?
It might be, yeah, but it's some element of the process of building Vision means that he's like a pure creation, like he's
Right, he's a good
pure,
guy.
yeah, right. So he can like lift Thor's hammer and all
Okay.
that sort of thing because he's
Maybe
worthy.
maybe it
or
is the
whatever.
stone then, because that's
Maybe.
what you have to die for Thanos to get the stone, right?
Yeah,
I give a fuck.
I haven't
Yeah.
seen it since like the weekend after it came out 5 years ago.
Well,
whatever
Age
it
of
was.
Ultron.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to see Infinity War having not seen any others, so I just had to go along with it. Like, oh, we need to get Vision. And I'm like,
Sure.
I don't know who that is, but whatever. Scarlet Witch is with him. Like, I'm sure she is. I don't know.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, so those new ideas, I think that's an important distinction there.
Yeah.
But this offered me nothing new, and towards the last 20 minutes, I was able to say to the people I was watching it with, much to their delight, I'm sure, like, well, it's obvious to me that the chip is behind it all. And they were like, no, the film's not clever enough for that.
Yeah. I don't mind a film that has some plot twists in it. You know, even if you can
But
see,
they're not twists if you
but-
know they're coming.
Yeah, but they kind of are though.
Like
Like
you've said to me previously, a movie can be good. Like a movie is good if it plays unexpected notes, but if it plays all the right notes perfectly, it's also good. Right?
yeah, I guess
This doesn't play them perfectly.
It doesn't play them perfectly, but it plays them well enough. It's like a karaoke movie, right? So it's like
Right.
because of the context, it sort of doesn't matter if the notes aren't perfect
Right.
because the experience overall is at a push an enjoyable one.
At a push.
Yeah, like you know, it's
It's
a
like I said,
dumb,
I did
fun
enjoy it.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The best bits for me were the fight scene, the first one.
Yeah,
The subsequent ones were less good, and I guess that's it. And the annoying thing is that's in the trailer, the whole thing. So
well, it's still better than quite a lot of the films we've watched.
that's true. Yeah. Would you rather watch this 20 times or watch Cannibal Holocaust once more?
Yeah, the less said about Cannibal Holocaust, the better. With all that said about Upgrade, though, Joe, how would you survive?
So this is his name Cirque?
Cirque, yeah, the guy in the house, the first one.
Yep, Cirque du Soleil. So old, what's his name? Gray.
Grey, yeah.
Fuck, man. It's just an effort to remember their names. Gray goes in there and Stem's like, look at the table. It's an answer machine. And he like reads his little messages and stuff.
Mhm.
Have a password. Come on, man. Like if you wanted to
Do you
read
have
my
a
messages,
password on your Google Home?
no, but it only responds to my voice.
But can you? Well, no, that's not true.
It is.
It's not true.
If I try and like, so it's logged to my wife's Google account,
Yeah.
and if I say send a message or send a text, it says no because I'm not linked to your voice.
Right. Okay. That's interesting.
So it's along those lines, it's not those words. But
right.
like I've got messages on my phone, but you can't read them because you don't know my password, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's a fair point. I mean, thinking about it, that makes a lot of sense. You wouldn't just leave you might leave your phone lying around, but I'd say 90% of people have a password for their phone, don't they? Yeah, I mean, do you need a smart coffee table? And if you
need
do have
anything?
one, then like, surely it should have the functionality. Maybe the answer is getting a better smart coffee table, which has a security function.
Yeah.
But then, like, if it's locked within your home, you know, though
Right. It'd be inconvenient.
you can't send email like malicious emails from your wife's Google account.
Yeah.
Presumably, you're not planning on doing that anyway.
No.
So the functionality isn't the thing that's stopping you. It's the motive, the lack of motive on your part.
Yeah, that's true. But then I guess I previously have tried to turn off the password on my phone because I find it. This is when they first installed it. You know, when it was a point where you upgraded your firmware on an iPhone and you had to have a password, and I nearly like stopped using my phone forever because I was like, if you think I'm gonna type in a password every time.
I can't imagine that I will ever enter a password every time I look at my phone. But of course, you've given away some of your biological data
Yeah, exactly.
in exchange for not having to enter a password.
That's true. So there you go. There's your answer. Thumbprints. Any level of like, because if I said to you now, without like smashing me around the head and beating it out of me, how would you get to my emails? You'd need my password.
Yeah.
Whether it's my laptop or my phone or my email account itself, there's no way for you to do it without doing that, I think.
Yeah, that might be true. I'm just trying to think if I know your password. I don't think I do.
You might know one. For the, you know my Amazon account because we use it for this podcast.
It's been it's been a while. I don't
Did you
know.
log? It's just still logged in.
Yeah,
Auto logged in.
Exactly. Yeah. Maybe that's it. Maybe his coffee table is logged in.
Automatically logged in.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Maybe like you, he was sick of entering his password, and he's like, "Well, I'm a lonely
I'm a bachelor.
veteran bachelor who's got a rifle built into his arm or whatever." Maybe he doesn't have that actually.
Yeah.
You'd think he would use it.
Is there a better place in the body to have a rifle? Would you rather have an rifle in your arm or in your leg?
Well, I want to get onto this. Maybe
Okay,
I'll
right.
seg straight into this. In that,
So quick question. No, agree with the password?
yeah, I mean, like generally, that's a good idea for cybersecurity, isn't it?
Basically, 2019. I mean, 2006 to have a password.
Yeah,
1997 have a password.
yeah,
Wherever the fuck this is set, you need a password.
yeah. It's true. It's not a bad shout.
Do continue to segue.
Yeah. So, why would you bother having guns implanted in your hands?
Because you fired a gun before, right?
Right.
Shotgun.
Yeah.
Like-
A rifle. I've fired.
The barrel gets so hot. I
You
shot a
don't-
shotgun.
Yeah, but you
It's-
don't hold the.
Exactly. You don't hold the barrel, so why would you embed it in your arm?
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Like, he's going to burn the skin off.
Right, yeah. Well, that's point one, right? But as we see through the course of the film, there's no discernible advantage to having a gun in your arm over just holding a gun,
Right.
because they're slower and much more cumbersome to reload because you have to like feed every bullet into your bicep,
With one hand.
right? Whereas most modern guns have magazines which have multiple rounds that you can reload a gun in seconds
Yeah.
compared to feeding them in one by one, right? You give up all possibility of having a normal life because it's an instant giveaway that you're a modified human,
Yeah.
upgraded human. There's not. Why would you have that? Why would you have
But
that?
he didn't volunteer. I think it was
No,
put
but-
to him
but-
anyway.
Right, but then what? Like
Why- who
benefit?
came up with that,
why?
right?
Why is it a military advantage?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess
Well, like
because if let's say Chris Morris with a gun against Fisk with a gun in his arm, if I break your fingers, you can't use your gun. If I break his fingers, he can't use his gun because he can't reload.
right,
I'm just drawing comparisons here.
okay,
If I knock you out, you can't fire the gun. If I knock him out, he can't fire the gun. So I'm trying to find where's the
tactical advantage
Yeah.
in it?
I guess
Because
you can't even aim it better.
No, exactly, right? You
Harder
can't.
to
So
aim.
imagine, right? If you're listening at home, if you're or on the tube, wherever you are, imagine there's a barrel of a gun in the palm of your hand, which, by the way, makes no sense as well
Yeah.
because how would it line up with your wrist? Right, it would have to be in like the heel of your palm, I guess.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Unless if God.
Like imagine if your hand was like closed and it accidentally went off as well.
Yeah. See you later, fingers.
Yeah, exactly. But right, so imagine you've got a barrel of a gun in your forearm, and
Yeah.
the opening to the barrel is in the heel of your palm.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to aim that. You have to like lean
Yeah.
over your arm and
Yeah.
hold it straight, and then even then you can't. Like you're obscuring the target by your palm, unless I guess you like Spider-Man it.
But they all use shotguns, which are close range weapons anyway.
Right.
They-
So it's
they're
just
not-
like
they're not
it's
like marksmen, they're
It's
just-
an accessory to a melee attack, like a close range combat thing.
Yeah, right.
The thing is though, right? I've seen John Wick, right?
Yeah.
You can do a lot of damage with a gun at close quarters
Yeah.
that is not built into your body.
Yeah. That's true. You can do a lot of damage with your fists.
Yeah. I don't know that the film presents any discernible tactical advantage to having it, including.
I guess they could just be experiments.
Yeah, that's true. I guess so. Also, one of the characters gets his head blown off by his own hand shotgun. So
That's fine.
that's not really a tactical advantage, is it?
But you're unlikely to pull the trigger on your own weapon and shoot your head off.
Yeah, it's more Well, I don't know. Imagine
not
if you're like scratching your head and you just
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. Where's the
Right.
trigger?
I don't know. There are like there appear to be like buttons built into the palm as well, right? There's like little dots.
What if you get dirt in those?
Imagine like washing. Imagine you're washing your hands and then water like goes down the barrel of the gun. Maybe it soaks the ammunition and then that's
Yeah.
useless.
Or just
Won't
get
fire.
water in there and it just goes damp and it starts smelling.
Yeah. Imagine it. You know, like metal expands and contracts in
Yeah.
the changing seasons.
Mm.
Imagine going through an airport.
Nightmare.
You can never fly again. Especially nowadays with the stringent security
I know.
checks.
I know. They're the guy that, I mean, if you are looking for someone to lock up for potential violence,
What,
Probably.
the guy with the rifle built into his arm.
yeah.
Yeah. It's a good indication.
Tip here, mate, for
Yeah.
the hacker. Don't know.
Jamie.
Jamie.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, because
So,
don't ask my gender.
Right.
I'm all for that, but it did seem crowbarred in.
Yeah, but it's like a cyberpunk, you know.
I get it.
No,
Yeah.
it's in like I am agreeing that it's crowbarred in, like it's a cyberpunk trope, isn't it?
But I think the conversation seems so clunky is what annoys me. But they could have been much more subtle, like, Jamie, what are you a boy or girl? Like, fuck you, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that would have been much more subtle.
Well, no, but like, that would be better rather than like, you just want to put me in a box. I'm not binary like you. Like,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I'm all for it, but subtle.
Yeah, you're down with the mission, but you just don't want these people pushing it down your throat, Joe.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Listen, if me, a straight white man, knows anything about gender,
Non-binary individuals.
exactly, yeah.
And I think I do.
a thing or two about the life of a non-binary person, they all live in squats and just hack computers.
With their little VR friends.
Yeah, and they should just be much more subtle about it all. That's my survival tip.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jamie lives in a squat.
Yeah. Well, does she? Or does she just
She?
work there? Do they? Or
Well, I don't know. I think they live there.
it's difficult though, because they leave when they get. There's nowhere for them to sleep or anything that we see. It looks like a squat, like you say. So maybe it's just their place of work.
It's not a place of work.
Well, it is a place of work because that's where they are,
And they're working.
and they're working and they get paid money for it.
Maybe. Okay, fine. If this is your office, right? You're
Yeah.
Jamie. This is your office. You've got a load of people tripping around you, essentially,
Yeah,
like nodding out on VR,
yeah,
and you're breaking the law. You're
Yeah.
obviously living outside of societal norms legally.
mm-hmm.
Why not have an alarm put in?
Security alarm.
Yeah,
There is a security alarm.
it doesn't go off.
It does.
No,
Yeah, it does. When they come up the stairs, it goes off.
it's a bit late for that. Lock the front door then. Like 4 people have walked in.
But presumably the same thing happened when Gray came up the stairs.
Yeah, but she didn't want him in there either. But they didn't want them. Jamie didn't want him in there either.
Yeah, but then there's a difference between a obviously crippled man coming up the stairs and 2 armed men coming up the stairs with designs on your life. Anyway, your point was that have an alarm, and they do have an alarm.
Well, it didn't work.
Well, they survived. Jamie survived.
Really?
Yeah.
Or just ducked out when it like
Yeah.
they saw coming upstairs. Guess so. Okay, well here's a tip then. Just throw that one away. Put it in the bin.
Yeah.
Here's a tip for Agent Cortez.
Okay. Yeah, Detective
Cortez. When you're in the high-speed chase, and for some reason STEM, the like artificial intelligence, is like, I can't drive. You drive. To
Right. Yeah, I
Gray.
didn't understand. Because surely STEM can drive through his body.
Yeah, you think so, but no. Because I thought like at one point I was like, oh, this is Knight Rider, but like the car is in his head
Yeah.
instead of him being in the car. Like, it's perfect because it's like
That should have been the tagline for the movie.
Knight Rider, but the car's in his head.
Yeah, exactly.
So then I was like, oh, there's limits to what STEM can do
Yeah.
because it needs Grey to drive the car.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a part at the end where it's like he got around Fisk by using emotion because the computer didn't have emotion.
Right.
That's clever. There's limits to that. And that didn't happen in the rest of the film. There was no payoff to that, so it's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Cortez is driving after him. High-speed pursuit, manual driving in a traditional car, not an electronic one.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't call it in. You'd think high-speed pursuit, you'd be like on the blower, on the horn, going, I've got a 2518, follow me, going down this road, looking for a white male driving in a particular car.
Yeah,
Doesn't
that's
do any
true.
of that.
I mean, I wonder if the reason she doesn't call it in is because earlier in the film we see her attempt to list Grey as a suspect, and the computer won't let her because he's had a C4 fracture of his spine, and so his condition is incompatible with the crime that she's trying to add him as a suspect for.
I'm fine with that, but then you don't say who you're after.
Yeah,
Say like,
that's
I'm
true.
after a Caucasian male
Yeah, yeah,
driving a particular car.
yeah.
Was it a Mustang? Isn't it?
Something like that, yeah. A very sporty sports car. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, should have had backup. I mean, earlier on we see drones arriving within seconds to the scene of a crime.
They seem to circle everywhere all the time.
Yeah, so where are they? Why aren't they tracking old Grey?
It's almost like the film is riddled with inconsistencies and plot holes.
Nah, mate, nah, not at all. I've got a bit of advice. It's actually goes hand in hand with the don't have guns in your arms.
Okay, it goes arm in arm.
Yeah. Don't stand so close to someone you're pointing a gun at.
Okay.
Which is a thing that I see in just so many films. It is always frustrating, right? One character gets the drop on another.
And then walks within their range.
Right, walks within their like
Their
swinging
grip
distance.
range.
Yeah, right. I'm amazed that STEM didn't pipe up and say, maybe don't stand within arm's reach of Fisk.
Because the thing is, right, you mentioned it many times on the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a known high-intensity combat athlete.
Are you a mixed martial artist?
Yeah, well, since you brought it up, one of the things that's quite hard to learn is range, knowing someone's range.
Yeah.
Because if you get inside their range, they can punch you. If you work outside of it, they have to work. Now, that goes doubly if you're... I mean, it wouldn't matter if you were within their range, if you were stood 5 feet away from them, pointing a shotgun at their head.
Right, exactly. Because they're not going to close 5 feet of distance before you can pull the trigger.
Right.
But
That's the point of a gun.
Yeah, but then the mistake that Grey makes is that he closes the distance himself,
Yeah.
therefore not giving himself enough time to pull the trigger when Fisk attacks him, which he does, and then the gun gets thrown.
If you so could like convince you need to go up to him, just shoot his legs off first.
Yeah.
Blow his leg off.
You're there with designs to kill him.
Yeah.
I guess he wants to know who hired him.
Well, do that from 5 feet away.
Yeah, you've shown that you've got no, aversion to torturing people to get information out of them by cutting a man's face open.
Yep.
So
yeah.
But I mean, this is such a sort of TV tropes.
Yeah.
Scene. We see it all the time in action movies. Yeah, just keep an appropriate distance.
Of course. Because if I had a gun now and I wanted to point it at you, you wouldn't be able to get near me unless I came to you.
Yeah, exactly. Because we do record an appropriate distance away from each other should either one of us pull
it's
a gun.
like the Houses of Parliament are one sword's breadth across.
Yeah.
We're one gun's breadth across.
Correct. Yeah. Have you got any more ideas?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a bit mealy-mouthed, but I'll go for it.
It wouldn't be an episode of the How to Survive podcast without at least one mealy-mouthed survival idea.
This is for STEM, who does survive the film. So it's a bit pointless, but just do it quicker. Do it, fuck everyone off.
Right.
Because you've got old matey, right? You've got Aaron dusk.
Musk.
Right?
Yeah.
And you seem to be able to get him to do anything you want.
Yeah.
So just get him to turn off the shields straight away. That's a start.
The input guards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just do what the fuck you want after that.
Yeah. I think there's two things though. I think the condition that Gray is in at the end of the film is by design. So STEM doesn't let him sleep and keeps him moving all the time, makes him go into these incredibly high stress, high pressure scenarios. And STEM, I think, explains in the final scene that it's to
Weaken his defenses.
Yeah, to weaken his defenses, to
Soften him up.
To make him undergo a sort of psychological breakdown.
I'm fine with that, but you can do that anywhere. You could, like, as soon as they put the chip in him, right, he could just start doing it there. Apparently, he doesn't even need to leave the room. He can just do it like. Do you know what I mean?
No.
If you locked him in a cell after you put the thing in,
Yeah. But he doesn't have control of him at the start.
But that's what I'm saying. He doesn't have control because there's procedures put in place by Eron.
Right. But Eron is under STEM's control.
Exactly.
So STEM could say, right,
turn them off right now, or
Yeah,
I'm going to like lock the doors and you can't leave.
right. Or he could say, put him in a cell and torture him until he.
Quite. Which is not dissimilar, Chris, to next week's film, which is Martyrs. But I think you have one more survival tip.
I do, yeah. It's just another quick one, really, for old Fisky. It's something that we talked about earlier. The nanobot breath. Just use that all the time. Why wouldn't you use that all the time? He only uses it once successfully that we see.
Well, he does say, I could kill you without moving a muscle. I just need to breathe on you and I'll kill you.
Mm-hmm.
And so why don't you?
Yeah. And the second time he tries to use it is in the fight with Gray, and STEM sees it happening and I think warns Gray and like makes
punches him in the throat or something.
Yeah, something like that to stop it. But I mean, if you can do it without moving a muscle, as it were, surely you can just breathe them out at any time. As soon as he walks in and Gray's in the flat with him, just go. Nanobots come out.
Gray, good to see you.
Yeah.
That's it, dead.
Oh, you really got me.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Nanobots in the air. And like STEM can't do anything about it once they're in the air, can he?
No.
He's saying like stop him from deploying them. He's not saying like, oh, swat them out of the atmosphere in front of you.
Nanobots, mate.
Yeah, it doesn't make it. Why wouldn't you? It's his like ultimate weapon, right?
Yeah. Well, it's what should
It's an
be
instant kill.
It should be the one punch kill like that the big boss has.
Right. It's the 5-finger death punch or whatever.
It's the golden gun.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
is used against a bartender early in the film and never mentioned again.
Yes.
Except in passing and not used properly.
Yep. Good.
So there you go.
That was Upgrade. Thank you very much for listening.
So we mentioned, one of the survival tips there, Chris, was to lock Gray in a cell.
Yeah.
And torture him.
Yeah. Luckily, exactly what's happening in next week's film. As we start Revenge season or new French Extreme season.
Yeah,
as well.
new French Extreme season, Revenge season.
Yeah.
This is a revenge movie, so maybe Revenge season
is already carrying on.
Does it ever end with these kinds of movies?
I guess not.
Robocop's a bit of a revenge film.
Yeah. What is the revenge film we're covering next week?
Well, it's 2008's Martyrs.
Yeah, by Pascal Laugier.
Yeah, French language.
Yeah.
Available on Amazon to stream.
But don't let the fact that it's French put you off. Let the fact that it is morally repulsive put you off.
Well, I'm hosting next week, and let me tell you, I've done a lot of research on it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
the best ways to skin a cat.
Yeah, the best ways to skin anything. Skin-tastic.
That's next week, Martyrs. In the meantime, you can email howtosurviveshow@gmail.com or you can tweet at howtosurvivepod if you are so inclined and you want to get in touch. Also, don't forget to leave a 5-star review for us if you have enjoyed the podcast. That really helps us find a wider audience, and it would be much appreciated. We haven't had a 5-star review for some time, Joe.
That's not entirely true, Chris. We have had one here, which says, my favourite podcast, 5 stars. Lots of fun without being over the top and annoying. Often very amusing, but also insightful and genuinely interesting for film fans. There you go. That's
What was the name, sorry?
that was from Jay Sherville. It's Tunes and Lyrics on iTunes and iLyrics.
Thanks to you, Tunes and Lyrics. But yeah, please, if you listen on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcatcher of choice that you use, then please leave us a 5-star review. Thank you very much for listening. Au revoir until next week.
And then it'll be bonjour, won't it?
It will. Thank you very much for listening. Until next time.
Stem, turn off the podcast, please.